All I'm saying is, life will not be contained. Life breaks free. It expands new territories, it crashes through barriers, painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is. Life finds a way. Jeff Goldblum's terror is here. Feral carnosaur of legend that journeyed all the way from Jurassic Park to the jungles of Lustria and will never rampage. And somehow, that is the least cool part of this update. Strap in, ladies and gentlemen, because strictly in terms of unit selection, the Silence and the Fury might just be the new gold standard when it comes to Lord Pack DLC. Jeff Goldblum approved. There is some crazy stuff about to drop for Warhammer 2, so let's dive right in. And the first thing I want to do is drink in the glory of this screenshot from the end of the trailer. We have a sweeping cinematic image of a band of chameleon stalkers swarming around Oxyotl, the Skink Oracle leading a pack of Troglodons and a Coatl Sky Serpent flying overhead on the left side of the screen, while Taurox the Brass Bull leads a stampeding Bray herd into battle with Tuskor chariots and a Wargor leading the charge, a Ghorgon, and a Jabberslythe bringing up the rear. My lord, won't somebody think of the Charlemagnes? We have not one, not two, not three, but 4 headlining centerpiece monster units launching with this Lord Pack. If you want to talk about ways to send Warhammer 2 out with a bang, this is one hell of a way to do it, and y'all don't know the half of it yet. So while you bask in the glory of that screenshot a couple moments longer, let's break down the campaign mechanics, start positions, new units, and regiments of renown that will be dropping alongside the Silence and the Fury. Oxyotl will get things kicked off in the Deadwood, northeast of Nagorond, near those goddamn ag holes, at the very edge of the Chaos Waste, so the cold-blooded Lizardmen will be hanging out in one of the coolest regions of the Warhammer world. There's no real lore reason for him to be there, despite his rendezvous with the great enemy in the realms of chaos. It's pretty much just an open spot on the Great Vortex map, and I think that's why they moved him there. And it helps set him up for a fight with the demons in the combined campaign for Warhammer 3. His campaign will revolve around a lost network of silent sanctums, hidden colonies that can be brought back online like an undercity, and allow him to rapidly traverse the world, teleporting between his capital Nagoroth to the site of battles throughout the globe, which means his army will be extremely mobile on the campaign map and will be able to establish forward bases pretty much wherever he wants when the natural order is being threatened. Should be a pretty interesting start position, as the situation continues to become more and more untenable for Lord Vader and the Dark Elves, and it won't get any easier for them in Game 3 when Skarbrand and Volkia and the rest of Chaos come swooping in from the north and make life hell for everybody in that northwest corner, which will be an interesting facet of Immortal Empires that a lot of these factions that are currently on the borders of the map and therefore can't be surrounded will suddenly have a lot more enemies to deal with coming from multiple angles once the combined campaign drops for Game 3. Now, Taurox, on the other hand, begins his campaign in the Obsidian Peaks, east of Marathi and the ancient city of Quintex. So he's actually only a hop, skip, and a jump away from Oxyotl. Just needs to cross the Sea of Chill past Kar, which in Warhammer 2 is really just a glorified channel. You can cross that with half your movement points and disembark on the other side. His entire playstyle is based on momentum, which you gain from raising settlements and fighting battles. If you use your resources well on that front, you can replenish your movement points multiple times in the same turn, and end up fighting many battles and conquering many settlements in very short order. which can help you snowball out of control and get your economy popping off. Now, economics are not the Beastmen's forte, but if you're raising and sacking and pillaging everywhere, you'll get plenty of money. And the longer his kill streak continues, the greater the gifts Taurox and his army can earn. So, all that sounds nice, but the big highlights right now for me are focused on the unit side of the DLC. And we're going to be getting Doombulls, the ferocious Minotaur Lords of Legend, who will not be wielding traditional weapons. Think of them normally, they're carrying big-ass axes, that kind of thing. Here, take a look at the screenshot, he almost has the Beastmen version of a Kestis, a boxing war glove with chains and spikes to punch people with, which is really badass. At the bottom left portion of the screen, we have a Wargore hero wielding a spiked maul and buffing nearby allies with his support abilities. And of course, in the background, the meme has finally come full circle. The small indie developer has scrambled together enough Charlemagnes to create this hideous abomination. It's uglier than a goddamn hell pit abomination. The Jabberslythe, with eyes aflame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. Oh, it is a thing of dark, majestic beauty, a sickening fusion of toad, sludge drake, and many-limbed insects spurting bile blood and draining health in an AoE with its aura of madness. It is a tier 5 anti-infantry monster with poison and a mortis effect. I mean, what's not to love there? It's awesome. My personal favorite, and what I think will be the highlight of this DLC, is the Ghorgon, also confirmed, and an absolutely fantastic model that regenerates health when feasting in melee and is designed to counter large armored monsters, which is exactly the role the Beastmen needed it to play, especially against the Lizardmen, who they're matching up against in this Lord Pack DLC. Way cooler looking than a giant, way more interesting in terms of mechanics than a giant. Those scything blades are going to spell big problems for any large entity that wants to trade blows in melee. I cannot wait to show you guys the Gorgonzola cheese. Then to round out the rest of the Bray herd, we've got the cheaper, more cost-efficient chariot pulled by Tuskgors, will also be a mount for the Wargore it looks like, and 3 new regiments of renown. The Groghooves of Wolf's Run, a Centaur throwing axe unit with poison and health regen, the Broodmother, a Jabberslythe with armor sundering and AP bile blood, and the Blood Brute Behemoth, a red-skinned Gorgon of Khorne that has scaling damage, dealing more devastating blows lower in health and enemy drops. So if you're looking for something on the Beastmen roster that can finally go toe-to-toe with an Ancient Stegodon or a big-ass Carnosaur, many-limbed Ox Giants of Khorne will likely perform that role quite admirably. On the Lizardmen side, we have a Skink Oracle hero, which will always be tied to the mighty Troglodon it rides into battle, so you can't just have him on foot, he will always be on top of his big Spinosaur. And unlike the lore, where they are used kind of as a spiritual tether and lens, through which a Slann Mage Priest can cast his spells, now they will be wielding that magic themselves, with a mixed spell selection from Beasts, Life, Fire, and Heavens. Although it's fair to expect they will be the lower-end type spells from each of those lores. The Feral Troglodon will be one of the new Tier 5 units, capable of spitting powerful venom that is designed to wreck large monsters, so unlike the Ancient Salamander, which lobs large explosives into ranks of infantry, the Troglodon spit would be more of a direct ranged attack that can deal with Gorgons and Jabberslythe and the big scary monsters of other races. Interesting thing to note here, in the lore and in their army book entry, Troglodons are always depicted as albino, almost a pure white body with a pinkish Spinosaur sail up top. That is curiously not the case in Warhammer 2. They've gone for what I would argue is maybe a bit more of a generic green aesthetic, which they share with a lot more of the other dinos on the roster, which, don't get me wrong, still looks awesome, but after talking with CA, I've not actually gotten an answer on why they decided to make that change. There is a new regiment of renown called the Pale Death, which is the moniker all Troglodons receive in the lore, and it's certainly more pale than the regular feral version, but it's still more of a bluish purple when you see it in the trailer, rather than a pure white look. And personally, I prefer the albino kind of aesthetic. I think it's a more unique and interesting aesthetic, and marks them as a creature blessed by the Old Ones and by Sotek, the twin-tailed serpent. But either way, very glad to have them join the cast for the Lizardmen in a unique hybrid role, and they are one of those units that should be able to transition seamlessly between melee combat, running around, using its speed to get around, flank, and then fire in with that acid poison. And then, of course, there is the Coatl, which I personally love this depiction of. Instead of going for a pure flying serpent with kind of a viper face, Creative Assembly have made it quite a bit more majestic, I think, combining a dragon, a phoenix, and an anaconda into a highly intelligent, fearsome flying monster that can rain down bombardment spells and vortex bound spells, and stealth cloak any friendly units nearby that are marching directly below it. So, if you have a Dread Saurian, the Shredder of Lestria, and you're afraid it might get blown up by handgun and cannon fire on the way in, you can probably give it some close air support from a Coatl, and your enemy won't be able to see it until it's right on top of the opposing force, which is amazing. Being able to stealth cloak the biggest monster in the game is a powerful combination. Should definitely be one of the highlights of this DLC, which is saying a lot. For infantry, we have the new Chameleon Stalkers, which are kind of an aggressive and stealthy shock infantry unit with explosive precursor darts, perfect for blowing up low armor chaff like the Beastmen and their Ungors like the Bring. And for new regiments of renown, as we said, there's the Pale Death Troglodon, a feral monster with a unique color scheme, unleashing its primeval roar to buff friendly melee attack, which implies the normal feral version will not have that ability. Almost like they took the Army Book Troglodon and made that the Regiment of Renown version, which is pretty interesting. For the other ROR monsters on the Lizardmen roster coming in this DLC, we've got Geltblom's Terror. It's a clear-cut Jeff Goldblum reference, Jurassic Park reference. It's a feral Carnosaur that cannot rampage and has Vanguard and Strider for outflanking opponents. And we have the Spirit of Tepok, a legendary Coatl that can cast Shield of Thorns and Banishment, which will be different from the lightning-based attacks of the standard version. I can't think of too many lightning-based attacks in the base game, but Uranus Thunderbolt and Chain Lightning, I think, are the two that spring to mind. So those might be the two ones that it can unleash here. So before we even get into the Beastmen rework, before we get into the campaign mechanics and the free update portion of all this, and all that information has not been divulged yet, I'm already really stoked on this DLC, honestly. Just purely based on the units that have been included here, the models that have been created, and the sheer amount of content on offer, it might very well blow some previous Lord Pack DLCs out of the water. And the Beastmen are well and truly getting their long-awaited lovin' and a massive improvement over their original and somewhat underwhelming introduction. There really isn't a single monster or unit for either the Lizardmen or the Beastmen now that needs to be in the game. It's pretty much all here. Every hole that existed in their rosters that shouldn't have been there is filled now, which is awesome. Like, anytime an entire race truly feels complete in this trilogy, that is a big win. Now, that's not to say they might not get more content in the future, especially when we're talking about marked Bestigors and Minotaurs. I fully expect we'll see Zongor Enlightened flying on Discs of Tzeentch in Game 3 at some point, but their base rosters are looking awesome right now. The stuff that truly matters appears to be really well fleshed out. Quite happy overall with how the Silence and the Fury is shaping up here. There's going to be an absurd amount of content on my channel coming over the next several days and weeks. I've been preparing all that for a while. We'll be talking more about Oxyotl and Taurox and their individual campaign mechanics and the free LC side of this update very soon as well. So stay tuned. Let me know what you think so far, and I'll see you all in the next video.